Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Spiritual Journey podcast. My name is Nimesh, Radia, and I'm your host. I always love starting every episode by saying thank you. I feel so blessed with this podcast. The impact it's having. I started it as a passion project. I was guided to it by my mentor, my friend Sarah Jeffrey, when she left this realm. Guided through the Akashic records of my voice, my gift. I named it after my mentor. It has her initials, Spiritual Journey, Sarah Jeffrey. I still feel like it's been guided by her from the other realms. And started with only maybe an episode a month, if that. And now we release 2 episodes a week. I feel so blessed with this podcast and the impact it's having. So thank you for everyone that supports it. If you're a regular listener, thank you, thank you, thank you. If you're new to this podcast, welcome. If you have any feedback, please let us know. Feedback's always a blessing. I am an Akashic record reader, Akashic trainer, podcast host, podcast creator, as well as spiritual coach and mentor. And what I get to do is I get to guide you through your journey. I get to hold your space as you're going through a shift, and whether that's through mentorship or Akashic Records, this podcast, or whichever, I get to do what I love to do, which is hold your space, guide you, help you to understand you and who you are and why you're here. And I do that gently through guiding you to you. The mentorship program that we do is we're channeled by me and Stacey, my co-host. You can work with us together or individually. I love it's one of my favorite things to do is guiding people one-to-one. So if our voice resonates, reach out, book a free discovery call. I have a promo actually that I haven't announced yet. I'll announce it on this podcast. So listen in, and near the end, I'll tell you what the promo run mentorship is. So please do stay. This podcast wouldn't be where it is today without my beautiful and stunning co-host, the amazing, the stunning, the healer extraordinaire, and published author Stacey Brown. Stacey, I've got to do it,
Friends.
Boring otherwise.
It's so good to be back. And I absolutely love this podcast. It has been such a passion project for Nimesh and I, and something we're fiercely dedicated to. So it feels good to be in this space with all of you. Thank you for being here. My name is Stacey. I'm an intuitive. I do readings for people from around the world. I'm also an Akashic record reader and a spiritual coach and mentor. And just to remind you of a couple of things, right now I offer a 30-minute reading for just $44. So if you're interested in connecting with me and want to explore the world of intuition and what messages there might be for you, this is a really reasonable offer. Just go to my website, stacey-brown.com. I also want you to know that I have a really beautiful women's Facebook group. It's a private group that you are welcome to join if you're on your spiritual journey and looking for some guidance. I'm happy to support you. I have a book out. I published it 3 years ago. It's called Journey to Soul Center, Discovering the Gift of Surrender. It's available on Amazon and Audible. It's something that took everything in me to document the journey of healing and share it with all of you. So if you haven't checked it out yet, I would be honored if you do. I'm looking forward to getting into this episode with you today, Nims. How you doing?
Yeah, no, I'm good. Yeah, actually, just as I guess an early announcement, we next week's episode will all be about. It's been 3 years since Stacey's released her book, so we'll be talking more about it in the journey of what's happened after the book next week. So as a precursor for that, Stacey just reminded me. I thought I'd mention it here, but so under full disclosure, we're recording this on Tuesday the 17th, the day that it's got its solar eclipse. It's also the day of the Chinese New Year, so we move into the energy and the vibration of a fire horse, letting go of the energy of the snake. So we intentionally recording this on the Tuesday for the energy and the vibration of that's around us. I know I'll publish it on the Monday, and we're in this energy now anyway, right? So we just felt it was so we picked a topic that really is demonstrates the energy and the vibration that I feel like we're shifting into. So today we're talking about living from power, not permission. And I really feel like, with this phase that we're moving into, and by the way, I don't really prescribe to it's like, all of a sudden it's the year of the fire horse and everything, or overnight feels totally different. I feel like it's different for everybody, but I feel like the transition, the shift from completion to new beginnings, I feel like it happens over a period of time. But I would encourage you to use the energy of the fire horse and embrace the energy around you. It doesn't necessarily mean that everything shifts overnight, but if you change your intention, then you start to feel it. But I do feel like we're entering into a phase where living from our power, standing in our truth, not asking for permission is really what we're moving into. It's that kind of, yes, I talk about a lot about communities and collaboration, and Stacey talked about a Facebook group and all that. I have my membership, and the community is really important. But at the same time, standing in your power, standing in your truth. We've just been through a phase which has felt like it's been going on for years, where it's been really heavy. In some ways, it's been isolating. We've been in a cocoon, and we have maybe not had much interaction as we used to have. But what if now, with this new vibration, this new energy, it's time for us to manifest a new soul family, manifest people that support us, but also it's time for us to stand in our power. Like I said, it feels like we've been in a cocoon. It feels like we've been through so much, closed so many cycles. In many ways, we've been waiting for something. It's like in a holding pattern. And I'm not saying there's a big epiphany and all of a sudden, but it is, whatever we do, we've got to meet the universe halfway. So even if we're not getting full insight into whatever's coming next, we still have to meet the universe halfway. And what does that look like? Of course, self-care, time in meditation, time in nature, time getting to know this version of you, but also an intention and a wish to stand in your power. In some ways, I feel like we've been waiting to be chosen, waiting to be picked, waiting to be revealed whatever's coming next. And it's almost like we're waiting for permission to stand in our power. I really want you to take the message from this podcast that it's time for you to stand in your power. It's really interesting. Before this episode, Stacey was like, I don't know what I'm going to say, and I just laugh and smile at her, because for me, she's a living example of somebody that's standing in her power. She's made some decisions, kind of to stand in her power and to create, she was planning to move to the UK, but she changed all of that. She's going to stay in the US, and she's making decisions from her power, and it may feel uncomfortable, but she's doing it. So I'm like, Stacey, you're a perfect example, of outwardly very much living, at least working on living from your power without permission. So Stacey, when I say that today we're going to talk about living from your power and not permission, and from my perspective, you are really truly working on living from your power. How does that make you feel? I know uncomfortable, but how else does it make you feel?
Yeah, it does make me uncomfortable, just because I think when we are faced with a pivotal decision, or something monumental happens in our life, we come at it from all different angles. We're grieving the old and letting go of that, and we're also figuring out what we want in the new season. And this has been challenging for me to figure out. I didn't see any of this coming. And yet I'm now in a season where I get to decide something new, and I'm following with my intuition where it takes me. And it's been crazy, because it's put me in new environments, around new people, doing new things. And I do feel like I'm standing in my power. I'm figuring out who I am independently and learning to accept her, and also figuring out where my light shines the brightest. I've been working from home for the past 5 years, more than that. And I'm back in a salon environment part-time during the week and seeing clients in person and navigating building a Reiki business. And there's just all of this new stuff happening, Nims. And it's like, I recognize that I'm in the driver's seat and that I get to decide what comes next. And that's a really scary place to be, but it's also a very empowering place to be. So I would say I'm feeling a whole mix of emotions. And I also recognize the significance of this new year and what that means, that the year of the snake has passed, that I'm shedding the old, have shed the old, I'm releasing it, and I'm walking into a completely new season. So there's part of me that feels like I'm standing in my power and I feel empowered. And there's another part of me that feels insecure in the magnitude of the openness that there is for me to decide what comes next. Does that make sense, to feel both at the same time?
Makes so much sense. I mean, it's an interesting time. I mean, on this podcast, you've probably heard me talk about, I don't feel like it's a time to take lots of action. It's really a time to get to know you and be, and, but then from here, now we're talking about standing in a power. What does that really mean? Is it not contradiction? And it's like, it's not as black and white as some people would like it to be, right? There is a duality to what we're going through. There is a, so feeling both is I mean, if I was to be honest, over the last few weeks, I've felt at times so empowered, it's like I could do anything, and then at times I felt like just don't want to do anything, and just feeling, and then at times feeling emotional. It's just like it has been that up and down, and I feel like that's what a shift looks like, right? And it's like it's having what's courage? It's having fear and doing anyway. It's like, and so being honest with how you feel about being in that position where you know that you're in a position to make decisions that are going to impact the rest of your future, but also being fearful of it. I feel like it's natural. I feel like this last phase and kind of the cocoon feel of it. It's almost made us feel like we're waiting for something. We're waiting for permission before we act. We're waiting for this big epiphany, this big message to come from the sky. And I don't feel like it comes that way. I feel like it's our intention. This is why, the message from this podcast is to stand in your power. What does that really mean? It doesn't mean to be aggressive. It doesn't mean to be to speak really loud. It means to have faith in your journey, to acknowledge the fear and be courageous and stand in your power. It's a decision. It's an intention. I feel like sometimes we wait for the spiritual message. We wait for our guides. Give us a clear message. Give us a clear message. And when we get, maybe this podcast is this episode is a message from your guides. But when it doesn't come in the way that you expect it to, you discard it. And that's why, spiritual guidance, sometimes you give your power away with that. You're waiting for it. It's like, what, I'm not sure what to do. Let me go and pull a card. I'm not telling you not to go and pull a card. I'm not telling you to, a lot of people love asking ChatGPT things. I'm not telling you to not do any of that. But what I'm saying is you've got to have an intention to trust you. You've got to have an intention to stand in your power. And to ask yourself some powerful questions. Do you have a habit of shrinking to be liked? Do you change your energy and your vibration so others would like you? And, I've been talking week in, week out about choosing your soul family. and choosing people that allow you to be you, who encourage you, but also who challenge you. And that's what standing in your power is to also manifest those people and not be in a situation where you feel like you need to shrink to be liked, to fit in. You have a responsibility to stand in your power. You have a responsibility. I feel like anyone listening to this podcast is a light worker, whatever label you want to give it. You be the bridge, be the light worker, be, shifting from third dimension to fifth dimension, ascension, whatever words you want to give it. But I feel like we're that bridge where we set an example. And of course, we've still got work to do. Have we got it perfect? No. But we set an example. We inspire others by our action. And what if today you decided, and I'm talking to all of us, including our listeners, what if today you made a decision that I'm going to stand in my power? I'm not going to shrink back. But again, your intention is really important. It's not about being aggressive. It's not about being ego-driven. It's that quiet intention you speak with your heart and your soul. Today I decide to stand in my power. How does that make you feel? I'm not talking loud. I'm talking with power. Today I decide to stand in my power. Today I decide to live from my power. Today I decide that I'm going to be all I can be. I don't need anyone else's permission. How does that make you feel? So Stacey, when I say that to you today, let's decide to fully stand in our power without asking for permission. We're doing it with natural confidence, no aggression. How does that make you feel?
It kind of overwhelms me when I really feel into it. It's like, oh my gosh, I'm going to go all in, right? I'm going to go all in. I'm going to show up as myself. And I'm going to give this my best shot. That's kind of what I'm hearing. That's what it puts on me, is this like, okay, we're going to do this. Stacey, you're going to show up as the most authentic version of yourself. You're going to stand in the power of who you are. You're going to show people who you are. And then it's up to them to decide where the chips fall. That's what it feels like. It feels scary.
Can I tell you a secret, Stace?
Yeah.
What if you're already doing it?
I think I am already doing it. I think there's just the talking about it. It's like, it makes it very real.
It does. But what if it's that time? What if it's time to get real?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's interesting. I've talked a little bit about this, and hopefully I can explain it right. But I've done a really good job of kind of compartmentalizing my life since everything happened with my son. I'm super open on this podcast and vulnerable and share my heart, and I, do that on this platform, and I do that in the work that I do. But I'm also extremely private, like in my day-to-day life with my interactions with people. And I think I've held back a lot of who I am to the people in my day-to-day life because I've changed so much since everything happened with my son that there's been this kind of disconnect. And for the first time since everything happened with him, which was in 2019, okay, so we're going on almost 7 years ago, all my worlds are starting to come together into one. And I am showing people who I am in all areas of my life and standing in that power. And it is scary. It's a scary thing to be open with, this is who I am, this is what I stand for. But it's also really beautiful to be able to show up in the world as yourself in all areas of your life. And I'm doing that right now. And so I think as long as I'm not overthinking it and I'm just being present, it's beautiful. I think when I stop to think about it, Nims, it's scary. That's when it gets scary.
Yeah, it's interesting because, I'll always say on this podcast, we don't script anything, we don't plan anything. And Stacey didn't know I was going to put her on the spot. She didn't know that I was going to use her as an example of, kind of, she's already living this. It came to me a little bit before we started recording. And then as we're recording, I'm like, well, hold on, Actually, and honestly, I feel like I'm doing the same. I feel like I'm showing up. I feel like I'm standing in my power. Of course, I'm like everybody else. I want to know what's coming next. I want to know what's going to happen to the planet. I feel like the planet's going to go through a lot of pain, a lot of shifting. I feel like, there's a lot of shifts coming for me too. I feel it. And that's the thing with this journey is like, just because I feel it and I can feel it's coming and there's a knowingness in me, there's also a knowingness in me that the universe is supporting us, right? So whatever's coming for me is going to support me. It's going to be in my highest. But it's still okay to acknowledge it's uncomfortable. It's okay to realize and accept that, you know what? This phase is uncomfortable. It's like, and we've kind of gotten used to being a little bit isolated. At least I have. But I have been consciously for the last year or so trying to come out of that cocoon and do things like have a meditation circle in my home, like introducing the membership program, which is a beautiful safe space, but it's my way of building that community and showing up more. It's just an interesting time, but that's what transition feels like. We're moving from the energy of again, there's so much power and energy and vibration around right now. Chinese New Year. So again, it's a new start. We're shifting from the year of the snake to the year of the horse. I've never heard so much noise on social media and all that sort of stuff around the Chinese New Year. But people are just feeling the energy and the vibration, and they can relate to the fact that, hold on, we've just been and finished the year of the snake, which is the snake is all about shedding skins and, and I feel like we can all relate to that. And the fact you can relate to the snake is maybe like, okay, you know what? Maybe the fire horse makes sense. It's like maybe you're looking for something to really show you that there's a shift coming, because honestly, the snake has been uncomfortable. When you're having to shed skin and shed layers of who you thought you were, which is I feel like what we've just been through, it is uncomfortable. But how does fire horse make you feel? How does, going from a phase of feeling stagnant, feeling like you're standing still, to being on the energy of a horse? It's like the polar opposite, it's just, at least conceptually, right? And then you add fire to it. Today is a solar eclipse. It's called a fire ring because was it the sun covers the moon covers 96% of the, I think it's something like that. It covers of the sun, so you can only see the ring of fire. You can only see the fire around the moon, so it looks like a ring of fire. And then you've got the fire horse. The universe is telling us that this phase is all about fire. It's all about horse. It's all about energy. It's all about driving forward. But hold on, so is that like a light switch? All of a sudden we go from the feeling of a snake, which is about shedding skins and really kind of driving forward? Maybe it is, if you embrace the energy. Maybe it's a transition period. Maybe you're already living that fire horse energy. Maybe you've already been moving forward and standing with intention. Only you know that. And I feel like everybody can relate, but you may be in a slightly different position. But you can still embrace this energy. Fire horse. Horse is all about moving forward. And we've been stagnant for what feels like a while. So what if the fire allows us to really kind of burn through those things that are holding back. I really feel like we've been encouraged for the last few weeks to let go of the things that no longer serve. Intentionally release the things that no longer serve us so we can get into this new vibration without carrying this stuff. It's time for us to act without explaining. Why do we feel like we need to justify ourselves to people? If you want to do something and you sit with it, and you sit with your heart, and you have your intention feels like the right thing to do, then why do you feel like you need to justify it to people? This is a phase where I really feel like we've been asked to activate our spiritual abilities, our modalities. And I feel like we're going into a phase where some people in the old world aren't going to understand us in the new world. And, Stacey talked about merging worlds, right? This is the other thing I feel like we need to do. It's like, I remember when I was in the corporate world and I started doing the spiritual work, there's a part of me that's like, well, hold on. People in the corporate world are going to ridicule me for being in the spiritual world, and people in the spiritual world are going to ridicule me for being in the corporate world because it's not congruent, they don't match. But in the end, I remember a phrase that Sidri used a lot, and I resonate with a lot. How you do one thing is how you do everything. And what that really means is aligning your intention, using the same values in whatever you do. Of course, if you're in a work environment compared to your personal, it is going to be different. There's a different set of rules, but you can still have the same set of value. You can still have the same intention. You can still have the same intention of sharing it with your energy, your vibration, moving forward and not waiting for people to understand. You can still have that intention. So, Stacey, let me ask you to expand that. When you said you're merging worlds, I mean, for me, merging worlds is kind of what I've been doing for a while, especially when I kind of was in the corporate space. It's like I felt like I needed to. I didn't create separate social media profiles or all that sort of stuff. I was like, you know what? I am who I am. Plus, I'm not sure I can manage multiple social media platforms. But even that, I am who I am. People accept me for who I am. They do or they don't. It's not on me. But it's like, and I know, Stacey, maybe today I'm in the mood of making you feel uncomfortable. But you very publicly talked about moving to the UK. You talked about it every week on this podcast. And then I love your vulnerability, and I love how you process things on this podcast. But again, all of that changed, and you talked about it. You processed it here. You shared, and yes, it was difficult, and yes, obviously it's been a roller coaster. And people don't always see everything. But when I say to you, you're standing in your power, and actually how your world's emerging, what does that really mean to you?
It's crazy to think of how public I've been about my journey. And I'm sure there are people who are thinking that I was crazy for moving to the UK. And I'm certain there are people who are thinking I'm crazy for not moving to the UK. But when you put yourself out there, you open yourself up to people's opinions, right? It's just part of what we deal with. But for me, it was a very intimate decision. It was very much between like me and my higher power when I finally made the decision. And I have been kind of opening up my world even more with every step that I take. I've been very content to be at home and work with people virtually and have that experience. And after years of not working with people in person, what originally started out as me wanting to kill time waiting for my visa has turned into me being in a salon, building my in-person connections. And it's been a really interesting process to watch my worlds merge, because I've allowed myself to be somewhat isolated in this period. You know, I know that I talk about what happened with my son a lot. It's hard not to. It was such a life-changing event. And when that happened, I really pulled into my shell. And the only place that I was expressing vulnerability was online, right? And now I'm finding that I feel like I'm being called to more, that I'm being called to help people in person as well. And that calling feels really strong. And so I'm heeding that. But is it uncomfortable? Yes, it is. It's uncomfortable to kind of go from passively living life to exerting your power and standing in your power. It can be a really challenging thing to do. And I try not to overthink it. I try to go with what I feel instead of what I think. What feels right in this moment. And doing that next thing that feels good and right in that moment. And some of it's uncomfortable. You know, I'm getting to know a whole new dynamic in my work environment. I'm getting to know new people. I'm having new experiences every day, new interactions. There's nothing predictable about it yet, right? So it feels very uncertain. But I also feel like in order for me to heal from heartbreak, I wanted to be busy. And out of me being busy has come a lot of self-discovery, because it hasn't just been busyness. It's been all newness, new experiences, new people, new environment, new everything. And me learning to stand in the power of that just as me without a partner. It's just this season, Nims, has been teaching me so much. And sometimes I find it's hard to put into words because it's such a significant change I've experienced in such a short amount of time. And I think I'm still digesting a lot of it.
And you know what? That's the fact. That's the point. You know, being honest with how you really feel, right? How does it? How is this phase treating you? And it's just, are you being gentle with yourself? Are you judging yourself? And there isn't a right or wrong. And you know, in many ways, Stacey, I envy you. You know, it's like starting meeting lots of new people in that sort of way. I feel like, you know, you've manifested somewhere to, you know, do what you used to do in maybe your old life with hair, but you've also manifested, you know, continuing doing this healing work by having a place there where you can do Reiki. So it's really interesting when you allow the universe to support you. You know, I've been actively trying to change my world, you know, in terms of, I'm very conscious that a lot of what I do is online, you know, it's on screen, which is why I'm trying to do a lot more things in person, go to more events and networking events, and, you know, do my first solo retreat and all that sort of stuff. But it's just, you know, it kind of feels like sometimes it still feels really slow. And I feel like I'm showing up in every way I can. I feel like I'm doing, you know, with the full moon webinar we do, all this healing stuff, but also in my personal life. And that's okay to sometimes to keep showing up and maybe realizing that things aren't happening as quickly as we would like them to. But Stacey, in your experience right now, lots of things are happening very quickly. I mean, it's also making you feel uncomfortable. It's an interesting it's an interesting journey when we step out and just start looking at life from almost like a third person's perspective. You get to start to see how much you've shifted, because we're always so focused on the work that we need to do and get lost in. We don't always take a step back. And actually, I was just talking to a client before we started recording, and I was just saying, you know what, I'm proud of her. I'm proud of her for how far she's come and what she's done and standing in the power, and, you know, how much the universe is supporting her. And I feel like the universe is supporting all of us. But it's just we need to be open to see that magic and what does it look like. So, you know, embrace this energy, embrace this, you know, how, to everyone that's listening, have you had an honest conversation with yourself? How do you really feel? Have you taken time to be proud, to process? How are you different in different environments? How are you in your work environment compared to your home environment? Are you being authentic? And I keep asking, you know, have you looked at the people in your world, and who lifts your energy up? Who do you feel at a different level energetically when you're around them? They support you. Who drains your energy? And are you actively looking to make some changes? And maybe this is a perfect opportunity just to mention our mentorship program. I know, I mean, I'm very conscious. I'm always conscious about when to talk about what we do in more detail. I was quite proud of Stacey for talking more about it, what she does at the beginning. But so the mentorship program, we channeled it through the Akashic records, and over 12 weeks, we hold your space on weekly calls, and we really guide you to you. The weekly calls are really important, but the work you do in between is even more important. And I think we've been at the same charge rate, for a couple of years now, and I really do feel like we give a lot for 12 weeks. Yes, we have a framework, but every session is channeled, so we adjust it based on the individual. So it is a lot of work, and but I decided I'm going to increase the prices in April. But I thought, you know what? Why don't I combine it with something else I love to do, and that's to guide people to learn how to read Akashic records. So the promo I mentioned earlier is for the current price, I'm going to include providing Akashic training for the price of the normal 12-week mentorship. So it becomes a 14-week program. So if you've been debating and thinking about talking to me about mentorship, this is a beautiful time. And I haven't talked to Stacey about it, but I'm sure if you want to work with us jointly, we could work something out from including Akashic Records perspective. But this is the thing: if it's not us, as we shift this energy and as we stand, you know, really talk about standing in your power, it's a beautiful time to look for that soul family, to look for a mentor, look for somebody to guide you, but also make sure that you have people around you that hold your space. This is your time. And this is your time to be you unapologetically. Act without over-explaining. No, just why do we need permission? No one's going to not. You know, I remember talking to a client earlier this week, and I was talking about my blood family. You know, I have 4 brothers, 4 sisters, 10 nephews, 3 nieces, and you know, there's a lot of love there for me, but they don't really understand what I do. And I remember there was times years ago where I really wanted them to. I was really kind of determined to, for them to understand, even to a point where, you know, I agreed with Sidra, who was my mentor, my friend, when she was still in this realm, to let's go and spend some time with them. And, you know, most of my family lived 2 hours away, so we all kind of drove down, and, you know, I was talking to Sidra and Ivana on the way there, another friend, and just talking about whatever. And then as we're getting close by, we're like, what are you going to talk to my family about? She's like, you know, we'll talk about the community stuff we're doing. And I was like, okay, cool. We go there, and she talks for 90 minutes about how she loves spending time in the graveyard, how she prefers talking to the dead to the living, and how the spiritual and the travel that she does. And all my family are kind of looking at her thinking, who is this, you know? Maybe they kind of knew some of what I did, and then Sid was like, oh, we got to go. And we all drove in one car. So I was like, wait, what? Are you not going to talk about it? And then for 5 minutes, she talked about the community work we were doing and all that sort of stuff. And then we left. And I was like, but I look back now and I realized that it was my need to really want to take everybody on this journey with me, even if they wanted to or not. But that's not on me. I can't force people on this journey. And of course, I will help my family in any way I can. And, they're, I just do it differently. I don't expect them to understand fully what I do. And that's okay. And that's the thing with this phase. You may leave people behind, and that's okay. People may not understand you, and that's okay too. But the thing with power is you've got to find balance. It's not about your ego. It's not about pushing through your ego. It's about staying grounded with certainty and feeling the energy. And Stacey talked about trusting our intuition. Letting go of people needing to agree with you. Choosing alignment with you and your journey over trying to get consensus with everybody else. But it's a decision, it's an intention. So are you, as listening to this podcast, how do you feel about completely standing in your power, living from your power, and not asking for permission? Remember, I didn't say not trying to get alignment, because maybe there's some people that you're meant to work with and go, because I also talked about this is a phase of collaboration. So maybe there is some people you're meant to take with you, but you don't have to ask their permission. It's a really fine line. So how are you managing this line, Stace, about, when I say to you standing in your power, but you don't need to ask permission? This is, you just said you were doing this without a partner. How does this feel when I say to you, you know what? You're standing in your power, in alignment, but you're not asking permission.
It's really interesting because I haven't even thought of asking for permission from anyone. I've just thought I need to show up as the most authentic version of myself. And whoever embraces and accepts that and resonates with that is going to be in my life. And I haven't really thought beyond that. It's definitely another trust fall for me. It's another phase of me leaning into the unknown and just trusting that the universe is going to catch me. And I don't know what that looks like yet, but I absolutely don't feel like any need to apologize for it or to excuse myself for it or anything like that. I feel scared, not knowing what's coming next, but I also feel like this season looks completely different than what I ever would have expected anyway. So who's to say what's next?
And do we need to know what's next? And it's interesting, you just, so I said to you before we started recording, you're doing this already. So you just said, I'm not really asking for anyone's permission. And, I can relate. I haven't really asked anyone's permission to do anything for a long time. And it's just, it's easier, I guess, in many ways when, you're single. So it's like, but it's like, if you have a partner, do you need to ask permission or do you need to have a conversation? And, if you were aligned anyway, then I guess the alignment will come easier. But it's like, we've got to remember that everybody in our world is a reflection of our internal. So, if you feel like you need to ask permission, then I feel like there's probably some internal work they need to do. But again, I'm not saying you don't ask for alignment. I'm not saying you don't have conversations. And, you don't do it from a space of ego. It's like, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do what I want anyway and all that sort of stuff. No, it's a gentle, it's like, yes, we may be in the year of the fire horse, which obviously when you think of a horse and you think of fire, but you don't have to burn, part of my language, but you have to burn shit up just to kind of, to move forward. Maybe in some places you need to, but it's always around intention. Stace, I love this topic. I love the fact that, I've been talking about the energy be feeling similar for what feels like a few years now. And I feel like this is just the beginning of things starting to feel different. And I'm excited about whatever it brings. But as we start to close out this episode, have you got any general prompts that you'd love to share with our audience to allow them to go deeper and embrace this energy?
So I just encourage you to get in a space where you're dialed in and ask how you're showing up in the world, right? Like, just what are you doing right now to show up in the world? What does that look like? And are you being true to you? Are you following through with what you know is right for you, regardless of what other people think? And this is going to be more than a journal prompt, right? This is going to be like a journey in your journal where you uncover the layers of what you're experiencing right now. Like, are you showing up unapologetically as yourself? Are you standing in your power? Do you recognize the power of who you are? Just do a deep dive and see what comes up. And I challenge you, if you're in a space right now where this episode triggered something in you, send us a message. We love getting messages from our audience and finding out how these episodes have impacted you. So if you feel the power of this episode, please reach out and share with us your insights. We would love to hear from you.
Thanks, Stacey. I couldn't agree more. It's interesting that we've been very conscious with, well, we're always conscious with what episodes we pick, but it's just, I've intentionally kind of included, just more episodes with me and Stacey and the me solo. And I just felt like with this period that we're going through, I really wanted to support in the best way that we can. Again, I had some beautiful guests coming up, and I always feel like everything's aligned with that too. But I love what Stacey says. Give us some feedback. I love when we get suggestions from our listeners on what podcast we should record. Any feedback you have is a blessing. Anything you feel that we should do differently, please let us know. I'll include all of our details in the show notes. Stacey mentioned a book, etc. I'll include her website link in the show notes. And also, if you want to book a free discovery call jointly or individually, the link will be in the show notes. I have a beautiful membership, and I really feel like, and the reason I set it up, it started in December, because I feel like community is really important right now. So if you're looking for a safe space, we meet a couple of times a month. I set up a WhatsApp group, so I do card pulls and share information, and is building a beautiful community. If that sounds something you want to be part of, then again, I include the link in the show notes. But as we close this out, I really want you to know that Stacey's already doing it. You don't need permission to become who you already are. You've done so much work. You've shifted so much. I'm so proud of you. Hopefully you feel the love that's came from both me and Stacey today. It's just, you're a powerful being. If you listen to this, you're a powerful being, and you needed, you wanted. It's time for you to stand in your power. Stacey gave you some powerful journal prompts to kind of go deep. This is a time for you to really kind of fall in love with you, stand in your power, do it with intention, do it with love. We're sending you so much love and light, and really wishing you the best, and really wish you embrace this energy and shine your light. And if we can help and support, even if you just want to share some information about what's happening in your life, reach out, send us a DM. I'll include our social media links, etc., in the show notes. Our websites are just our names. So if you do a search, if you look on social media using our names, you'll find our links too. It's just we haven't complicated life. Everything, wherever you look, it's our names, and you can find our details there. Sending everyone so much love and light. Stacey, thank you again for you being so vulnerable, for sharing your light. Thank you. Love and light to all. Bye for now.